Intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Thursday, April 30th. Your readers today are
Pat Lamont
and Ruth Nowotniak, and we'll go to our weather forecast. Chilly today with a blend of sun and clouds. Breezy during the afternoon with a shower in the area, high of 49. Mainly clear tonight, low of 36. Clouds and sun tomorrow with a passing shower, chilly, high 50. Saturday cold with a passing shower, high of 47. And it looks like Sunday is going to be breezy with some sun with a high of 50. Nationally, our high was at Edinburgh, Texas at 94, and the low was at Big Piney, Wyoming at 13 degrees. Our sunrise was at 6:11 this morning, and it will set this evening at 8:15. And I'm happy to tell you that in spite of the chilliness of the weather, the snow derbies are out of the paper. We're done with that. Weather trivia question: what are the three principal types of fronts? Cold, warm, and stationary. Now we'll go to our front page news. The Supreme Court guts crucial provision in Voting Rights Act, and this is a Reuters article. The Supreme Court on Wednesday gutted a key provision of the Voting Rights Act, making it harder for minorities to challenge electoral maps as racially discriminatory under the landmark civil rights law, in a victory for Louisiana Republicans and President Trump's administration. In a 6-3 ruling powered by its conservative members, the justices blocked an electoral map that had given Louisiana a second black majority U.S. congressional district. With November congressional elections looming, the decision could prompt Republican-led states to seek to redraw electoral maps in an effort to put at-risk seats considered safely Democratic. The court's liberal justices, civil rights leaders, Democratic lawmakers, and some legal experts denounced the decision as severely undermining Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, which Congress enacted to bar electoral maps that would result in diluting the clout of minority voters. That provision had gained greater significance as a bulwark against racial discrimination in voting after the Supreme Court in 2013 gutted a different part of the same law. Black voters tend to support Democratic candidates. The Supreme Court has a 6-3 conservative majority. Wednesday's ruling was authored by Justice Samuel Alito and joined by his 5 fellow conservative justices. The 3 liberal justices dissented. The ruling was issued amid a battle unfolding in GOP-governed and Democratic-led states around the country involving the redrawing of electoral maps to change the composition districts in the House of Representatives for partisan advantage ahead of the November midterms. Trump and his fellow Republicans hope to retain the party's razor-thin majorities in the House and Senate. The full impact of the ruling on the midterms was not immediately clear, though legal experts said states may try to enact new maps. Louisiana, where black people make up roughly a third of the population, has 6 U.S. House districts. Louisiana has a primary election set for May 16th. Section 2 was passed by Congress to prohibit electoral maps that would result in undermining the clout of minority voters, even without direct proof of racist intent. Alito wrote that the focus of Section 2 must now be to enforce the Constitution's prohibition on intentional racial discrimination under the 15th Amendment. Only when understood this way does Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act properly fit with Congress's 15th Amendment enforcement power, Alito wrote. The 15th Amendment, ratified in 1870 following the Civil War that ended slavery, authorizes Congress to pass laws ensuring that the right to vote may not be denied on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. Interpreting Section 2 to outlaw a map solely because it fails to provide a sufficient number of majority-minority districts would create a right that the amendment does not protect, Alito added. Justice Elena Kagan, in a dissent joined by the two other liberal justices, said the ruling rendered the Voting Rights Act all but a dead letter and predicted grave consequences. Under the court's new view of Section 2, a state can, without legal consequence, symmetrically dilute minority citizens' voting power. Kagan wrote, "Of course, the majority does not announce today's holding that way. Its opinion is understated, even antiseptic. The majority claims only to be updating our Section 2 law as though through a few technical tweaks. But in fact, those updates eviscerate the law so that it will not remedy even the classic example of vote dilution given above," Kagan added. The Trump administration backed the challenge made in the Louisiana case to the Voting Rights Act, advocating for raising the bar for proving a Section 2 violation. House Speaker Mike Johnson from Louisiana said the Supreme Court had reached the obvious result in the case. "We'll see what effect it has," Johnson said. "We have, as you know, a primary coming up in about 2 weeks, so we'll see if the state legislature deems it appropriate to go in and draw new maps." The Congressional Black Caucus, a group of black U.S. lawmakers, condemned the ruling. Without the protections of the VRA, Republicans now have the ability to move forward with a nationwide scheme to rig congressional maps in their favor, to manufacture more districts for themselves by eliminating majority black districts, while stripping away the ability to challenge those racist, anti-black maps in court, it said in a statement.
Iran urged to sign a deal as Trump discusses blockade. Donald Trump discussed how to mitigate the impact of a possible months-long U.S. blockade of Iran's ports with U.S. oil companies, a White House official said Wednesday, as the president urged Tehran to get smart soon and sign a deal. Tuesday talks with oil executives followed deadlock in efforts to resolve the conflict, which has led to the United States to try to squeeze Iran's oil exports with a naval blockade to try to force it to reopen the Strait of Hormuz to shipping. Trump has said Iran can call it if it wants to talk, and in a post on Truth Social on Wednesday before details of the meeting emerged, said Tehran couldn't get its act together. Trump and the oil executives discussed the steps President Trump has taken to alleviate global oil markets and steps where we could take to continue the current blockade for months if needed and minimize impact on American consumers, the White House official said. Oil prices rose more than 6% on Wednesday, with the Brent contract hitting a one-month high on the prospect of a lengthy blockade. The war has cost the U.S. $25 billion so far, a senior Pentagon official said on Wednesday. Iran has pledged to continue disrupting traffic through the strait as long as it is threatened, which may mean more Middle East oil supply disruptions from the conflict, which has killed thousands and caused global economic upheaval. Tehran warned on Wednesday of unprecedented military action against continued U.S. blocking of Iran-linked vessels. Trump said Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon while Tehran says its nuclear ambitions are peaceful. They don't know how to sign a non-nuclear deal. They'd better get smart soon, Trump said in a social media post without explaining what such a deal would entail. It featured a mock-up image of him in dark glasses and wielding a machine gun with the caption, "No more Mr. Nice Guy." Iran wants U.S. acknowledgement of its right to enrich uranium for what it says are peaceful civilian purposes. It has a stockpile of about 970 pounds of uranium enriched to 60% material that could be used for several nuclear weapons if further enriched. Iran's parliament speaker and top negotiator Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf said Trump was trying to divide Iranians and force Iran to surrender through the blockade. The solution for confronting the enemy's new conspiracy is only one thing: maintaining unity, which has been the bane of all the enemy's conspiracies, Khalifab said in an audio message on Telegram. In a sign of the economic toll on the war is taking on Iran's economy, its currency fell to a record low of 1.81 million rials to the US dollar on Wednesday, the Iranian Students News Agency said, as demand for foreign currency that built up during 6 weeks of fighting was now flowing into the open market. The rial's value has fallen nearly 15% in the last 2 days alone, ISNA reported. Inflation for the month of March 20 to April 20 was 65.8%, the central bank said, a trend likely to be exacerbated by the currency's plunge. Iran's latest offer for resolving the war, suspended since April 8th under a ceasefire agreement, would set aside discussion of its nuclear program until the conflict is formally ended and shipping issues resolved. However, this did not meet Trump's demand to address the nuclear issue at the outset. U.S. intelligence agencies, at the request of senior administration officials, are studying how Iran would respond if Trump were to declare a unilateral victory. 2 U.S. officials and a person familiar with the matter told Reuters. Tehran has largely blocked all shipping apart from its own from the Gulf through the Strait of Hormuz, a choke point for global energy supplies since the U.S. and Israel began airstrikes on Iran on February 28th. This month, the U.S. began blockading Iranian ships. Iran no longer has a single undisputed clerical arbiter at the pinnacle of power, since several senior Iranian political and military figures, including Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, were killed in U.S.-Israeli strikes. The elevation of Khamenei's wounded son, Mojtaba, to replace him has handed more power to hardline commanders of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, Iranian officials and analysts say. Meanwhile, Trump is under domestic pressure to end a war for which he has given shifting rationales to the U.S. public struggling and surging gasoline prices. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth sought to defend the Iran war in fiery remarks to Congress, saying it was not a quagmire and attacking Democratic lawmakers as feckless for criticizing the unpopular conflict. Meanwhile, Vladimir Putin and Trump held a phone call on Wednesday in which the Russian leader put forward ideas on resolving the conflict over Iran's nuclear program, stated a Kremlin aide. Putin also proposed a repeat of a temporary ceasefire in Ukraine to mark the anniversary of the end of World War II next month, the aide said. Putin announced a similar truce last year, which lasted 3 days, but was not agreed with in Kyiv. The phone call was the first publicly announced conversation between the two leaders since March 9th. Kremlin aide Yuri Ushakov did not say what proposals Putin had made on Iran. Moscow has previously offered to take an enriched uranium out of the country. Ushakov told reporters that Putin had proposed the temporary ceasefire in Ukraine for celebrations on May 9th to mark the Soviet Union's part in the defeat of Nazi Germany. He said Trump reacted positively. Ushakov added that Trump, in a friendly and businesslike conversation lasting more than 90 minutes, had said he believed a deal to end the Ukraine war was close. We had a good talk. I've known him a long time, Trump said of Putin.
You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is approximately 14 minutes past the hour, And we will now go to our editorial piece. State steps in. As the Trump administration acts with disruptive cruelty, As the Trump administration acts with disruptive cruelty by cutting budgets and freezing funds of groups whose mission it is to feed the hungry and build a better community, it's up to wiser and more compassionate heads to prevail. Luckily, the state of New York still holds to standards of through equality and environmental justice and has sought to help repair the federal government's damage. As reported by the News' Mackenzie Schuman, 5 Western New York organizations were awarded a total of nearly $1 million from New York State to bolster programs whose charge is to work toward environmental justice by battling pollution and climate change, as well as provide easy access to healthy food. The announcement of the state funds came last week. Each organization at the receiving end is dedicated to healthy communities. 2 recipients embedded in Buffalo neighborhoods are Massachusetts Animal Avenue Project, $184,000, which runs farm and agricultural programs on Buffalo's west side, and Fillmore Forward, $200,000, a community-based nonprofit interested in revitalizing local businesses. Among groups receiving just under $200,000 were the Clean Air Coalition of Western New York, the North Tonawanda Botanical Garden, and the Providence Farm Collective. The awards to Western New York groups are part of a $6 million total award to 32 community programs across New York through the Environmental Protection Fund and administered by the DEC, according to New York State Department of Environmental Conservation Commissioner Amanda Lefton. Lefton made statements about these organizations and the grassroots work they do that got to the heart of why state funding is important. The funding supports critical work of the people on the ground and people who are committed to tirelessly lifting up their communities and providing a healthier, more sustainable future. Diane Picard, Executive Director of MAP, said her organization grows thousands of pounds of organic produce each year. MAP helps distribute even more organic produce through its mobile market. And in areas that are recognized food deserts and among people lacking access to transportation, MAP reaches over 6,000 low-income households across Buffalo. Picard said the grant money from the DEC will create 120 youth jobs in sustainable agriculture and expand healthy food access in Buffalo. That's just one example of the critical work these organizations provide. The Clean Air Coalition of Western New York will be able to fund the creation of neighborhood hubs designed to support a mutual aid network that helps residents prepare for and stay safe during extreme weather. The coalition, as other Western New York organizations, should have received funds promised under the Biden administration's Inflation Reduction Act, but Trump froze those funds under an executive order. Same for People United for Sustainable Housing, or PUSH, Buffalo and other local community and environmental organizations that back in 2024 were awarded $20 million. The Providence Farm Collective is engaged in a David versus Goliath effort in an ongoing lawsuit to restore $749,000 in funding it had received from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The Trump administration's communication to the organization that the money couldn't be used for diversity, equity, and inclusion programming is simply an infuriating example of the discrimination it pretends to be avoiding. As the Providence Farm Collective stated in an earlier story, the fact that our programs were designed by refugee and immigrant communities to serve specific needs in their communities does not mean they are inaccessible to others. The diversity being referred to by the Trump administration takes issue with is the very strength of these efforts, highlighting access to healthy food, clean air, and economic opportunity. The administration's cuts and freeze only serve to set back families who rely on these programs. The New York investment will not replace what was lost, but it does help ensure that this critical work continues.
And another voice. It is regarding the legal system, written by Julia Hall, who is a human rights lawyer who resides in Buffalo. Lawyers Rally May 1 stands for democracy. Lawyers, legal workers, and community members from Buffalo and across Western New York will celebrate Law Day with a Stand Up for Justice Lawyers Defending Democracy rally on May 1st in Niagara Square. Speakers and attendees will make clear that attacks on judges and lawyers for doing their jobs are unacceptable and the rule of law is not negotiable. The American Bar Association has helped set the bar regarding the targeting of lawyers and law firms with a lawsuit arguing that the administration has adopted an unlawful policy to punish law firms over their past legal work, diversity policies, and political ties. In a recent ruling, a federal judge said the ABA has plausibly alleged a coordinated campaign to intimidate and punish law firms and their lawyers based on constitutionally protected speech of which the White House disapproved. Lawyers are not the only ones facing intimidation. During an event at Rice University in Texas in March, Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts publicly expressed concern about the harassment and intimidation of judges across the country. Roberts pulled no punches, stating that while critiques of official Supreme Court rulings are part of the job, the growing personal attacks and hostility towards judges is dangerous and it's got to stop. Last January, a United Nations expert on the independence of judges and lawyers issued a statement expressing her alarm that lawyers are at risk and the long and proud tradition of the free exercise of the legal profession in the United States of America is now under threat. She also noted the Department of Justice's punitive targeting of career prosecutors and the firing of over 100 experienced immigration judges, and concluded that the U.S. government must recognize that the freedom of lawyers to represent clients without fear or favor is a mark of a successful democracy. The legal community in Western New York cannot remain silent. When fundamental legal norms and democratic institutions are under assault, everyone's rights are at risk. We all have an obligation to loudly and publicly defend the core principles that hold the legal system together. Please join us in Niagara Square on Friday to add your voice. Democracy and the rule of law depend on it. And our editorial cartoon today is from Michael Ramirez of Creators Syndicate. It is one frame. It is a giant bottle of poison, and the sign on it has the typical skull head, and it has political extremism as the poison. And I think that says it very well. Once again, just reading the Another Voice column and the political extremists that are of concern to Americans today. And now to our first opinion piece from Lynn Schmidt of the Fulcrum. Politics today have made safeguards useless. The men who gathered in Philadelphia in 1787 were students of history, and it taught them a singular lesson: power corrupts, and unchecked power can destroy a republic. They designed our experiment with overlapping safeguards to ensure that no single faction, branch, or man could hold a nation hostage. History has since exposed this as the system's deepest vulnerability. The Constitution assigns Congress the power of impeachment, but says nothing about the political will required to use it. It grants the cabinet the authority to remove an incapacitated president. It tasks Congress with checking executive overreach, yet it cannot compel a partisan legislature to act. In each case, accountability mechanisms exist. The founders hoped this system would produce honorable leaders, though they could not guarantee it. Impeachment has become a partisan exercise. The 25th Amendment, ratified in 1967 for genuine incapacity, remains a theoretical option. Congress is designed to be the most powerful and responsive to the people, yet it has retreated into dysfunction, unable to check the executive even when majorities of its members privately believe it should. One need look no further than April 7th. President Trump posted on Truth Social that a whole civilization, Iran, will die tonight, never to be brought back again, coupled with vows to destroy every bridge and power plant in the country. Legal experts warned that threatened strikes on civilian infrastructure could be war crimes. Congressional Democrats demanded that Republicans invoke the 25th Amendment or call Congress back for impeachment. Neither happened. Article 2 of the Constitution states the President shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. The phrase high crimes and misdemeanors is intentionally vague. The founders knew future abuses might take unexpected forms. They did not anticipate the Senate trial becoming a foregone conclusion before the first witness was called. Now, acquittal or conviction is predetermined by the party that holds the chamber. Cabinet members are political appointees loyal to the person who selected them, not to an abstract constitutional duty. And then there is Congress, the body of the founders, envisioned as the most muscular branch of government, was also the branch closest to the people. It has spent decades ceding authority to the executive. It has become too partisan to use the powers it keeps. The founders feared factionalism above almost everything else. George Washington devoted much of his farewell address to warning against the baneful effects of the spirit of party. James Madison in Federalist Number 10 acknowledged the danger of faction. He believed the constitutional structure would contain it. He was right about the danger and wrong about the cure. Faction consumed it. We must be honest about the distance between the founder safeguards and today's political culture. Impeachment is a high bar. The 25th Amendment is even higher, yet a system that refuses even to ask whether those bars have been reached has forgotten how to protect itself. One check remains: the voters, whether that is enough in the defining question of our time.
You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier radio reading service. The time is approximately 28 minutes past the hour, and we will go to our second opinion piece. It's written by Jackie Calms, who's from the Los Angeles Times. Trump's once loyal base is starting to doubt long-held assumptions. It's not generally It's not generally admirable to take pleasure in someone being targeted, troubled, or taunted in some way. But schadenfreude is exactly what I've felt in recent weeks unapologetically about President Trump finding himself for once on the receiving end of a dark conspiracy theory, including from some of his most prominent and former supporters. They're suggesting that he staged an assassination attempt against himself at a campaign rally in Butler, PA, in the summer of 2024 to supercharge his re-election prospects. So central is the Butler movement to Trump's narrative as president that he was saved by God to save the country, he prominently hung a painting of the now iconic photo of himself, pushing above a scrum of Secret Service agents, blood running from his injured ear, pumping a fist and urging, "Fight, fight, fight." in the White House's grand foyer soon after he moved back in. It replaced a portrait of former President Barack Obama, the relocation of which in turn pushed George W. Bush up a staircase. Yet here's how Tricia Hope, a Trump delegate from Texas to the 2024 Republican National Convention, described that Butler tableau in a social media post last week that former Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene reposted. Secret Service agents allowed President Trump to stand up, exposing multiple potential kill shots as the flag is gently lowered. Interesting that the other SS agents lower their heads as the perfectly timed, iconic photo is taken. Honestly, it couldn't have been scripted better if it were to have been done in a studio. For such former allies, together with the likes of mega celebs Greene, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, comedian Tim Dillon, and former Trump counterterrorism advisor Joe Kent, to now suggest that Trump's tale of divine salvation could well be a hoax, that it was rigged, perhaps reflects something else rooted in spirituality: karma. What goes around comes around. It is also a measure of Trump's lost credibility that even once cheerleading allies would question both the Butler shooting and a second thwarted assassination attempt 2 months later at his Florida golf club. Not coincidentally, these MAGA dissidents similarly reject the president's ever-shifting rationales for the Iran war he'd told them he'd never start, and for his bottling up of Epstein files he told them he'd release. Their belief that Trump would stage a shooting, which did leave the alleged shooter and one rally attendee dead, is the most extreme manifestation of the president's credibility gap in his second term. Memes about Taco, Trump always chickens out, now dog his pronouncements and demands of tariffs, Greenland's grabs, Iran's unconditional surrender, and more. Even Iran has joined the social media mockery of Trump's false claims and often empty threats. It would be comical if it weren't so serious and destabilizing for the nation and the world. The fact that Trump's public support is continuing to slide, recent polls released this week show 2/3 of Americans disapprove of his job performance, is reassuring only so long as you don't fear what a humiliated Trump on the ropes might do. To be clear, I do not subscribe to the Butler shooting conspiracy theory, just as I've never bought Trump's own conspiracy theories, least of all his big lie that Democrats defrauded him of his re-election in 2020. Trump not only helps to keep the lie alive, but his administration continues to investigate the long-ago election and to purge any career employees who helped prosecute the Capitol attackers trying to overturn Trump's defeat on January 6, 2021. His nominees for high posts, notably including for federal judgeships that demand independence, refuse to answer simply yes at their confirmation hearings when Democratic senators test them by asking whether Trump lost the 2020 election. In rote fashion, one nominee after another fails the test, uttering legalese they've plainly been coached to say by administration handlers about how Congress and the Electoral College certified Joe Biden as the winner. As recently as Tuesday, troublingly, that was the response of Kevin Warsh, Trump's pick to be chair of the Federal Reserve that Trump seeks to dominate. Thus, the otherwise qualified Warsh showed he lacks the political independence that's fundamental for a Fed chair. It was a Trump-prompted conspiracy theory that first attracted the far right to his side 15 years ago. His racist claim that Obama faked his birth certificate, was actually born in Kenya, and thus was not a legitimate president. So yes, there's nothing wrong in now enjoying that Trump is himself the butt of a crazy conspiracy theory from one-time backers with big megaphones. Play with fire, get burned. Lie down with the dogs, rise up with fleas. On his podcast Monday night, Carlson and his even more conspiracy-oriented brother, Buckley Carlson shared doubts about both Trump assassination attempts. I know that those investigations have been stymied. Fact, Tucker said. Yeah, stymied from the very top, answered Buckley. Kent, the promoter of conspiracy theories who resigned last month as Trump's director of the National Counterterrorism Center, afterward told a receptive Carlson on his show, "We still don't know what happened in Butler." "Just admit you staged it in Butler," said Dillon, a MAGA-friendly comedian, this month on his own podcast. "Of course, a real person died, and that's terrible. Rest in peace." Hang with conspiracists, be hung out to dry by conspiracists. Tell lies, be discredited. At the year's start, Trump famously told New York Times reporters that just one thing constrained him: my own morality, my own mind. It's the only thing that can stop me. Trump's problem is that his morality is actually amorality, from which he takes a license to lie, falsely posture, and renege on promises, which has cost him credibility across the spectrum. In the end, that too is a constraint.
I want to go back to that political cartoon because I was unable to clearly see what else was on the bottle, and I think this applies to everyone, every party, every person. On the poison political extremism, the active ingredients are hatred, ignorance, contempt, irresponsible rhetoric. The side effects are malice, division, polarization, and violence. Poison, truly. And our next opinion comes from Laura Washington of the Chicago Tribune. Harris' inexcusable transgression in a deeply split nation. When it comes to the 2028 presidential sweepstakes, Kamala Harris may be a non-starter. Yes, Harris ably served as Vice President of the United States, U.S. Senator, and California Attorney General. She valiantly stepped up to the late-breaking 2024 Democratic presidential nomination when Joe Biden's presidency faltered. She is eminently qualified to serve as president. In a perfect world, she should be sitting in the White House. This is not a perfect world. This is Trump world. Harris lost the presidential race to Donald Trump in unforgivable transgression. A 2028 rerun for Harris has been speculated for months, but she has been coy about her plans. Then, during a recent fireside chat with the Reverend Al Sharpton, Harris pumped up the volume. Sharpton asked Harris if she planned to run again in 2028. "Listen, I might," she replied at Sharpton's National Action Network annual convention in New York City. "I'm thinking about it." The crowd cheered. She served for 4 years, being a heartbeat away from the presidency of the United States. "I spent countless of hours in my West Wing office, footsteps away from the Oval Office," she said. "I spent countless hours in the Oval Office and the Situation Room. I know what the job is, and I know what it requires." More cheers. Some are not cheering. A prominent African-American female politician was heard to say at a recent Chicago fundraiser, "If the Democrats want to win back the White House, they should nominate a straight white man." Not female, black, Latino, Asian, or queer. Recent history and the nation's right xenophobic leaning mood dictates that. Long after Trump is gone, the racist and misogynist environment he has activated and fostered will grip our culture, perhaps for decades to come. In that mood, slavery is a lie. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are a fraud. Immigrants who helped build a nation are now criminals. Harris was imperfect, as all president contenders are, but she was also set up for failure. Can a woman, especially an African American, be elected president of the United States? Recently, at the Power Rising Summit in Chicago, 500 African American women leaders pondered that question, while Harris was the warmly received marquee attraction. Some in the audience were skeptical, according to a report from Politico Illinois Playbook. "I would love to see it, but I don't think the country is ready." The country wasn't ready for Hillary Clinton, and she was the most qualified. Monique Campbell, a nonprofit leader from Detroit, told Politico, The country wasn't ready for Kamala, and she was the most qualified. It's about timing. The fact that Harris and Clinton, two highly qualified women, could lose to an amoral TV huckster tells us that American voters either refuse or are incapable of elevating a woman to the most powerful office in the world. Harris remains popular, particularly among black female voters, yet, as we saw in 2024, that was not enough to carry her over the finish line. It's a grim reality. Trump's MAGA movement has othered women and people of color. Anyone espousing progressive views will be suspect among American mainstream voters. The argument goes that the GOP nominee will be conservative white male. You cannot rule out the idea that Trump, in his unique wisdom, will try to grab another presidential term. Experts laugh at the possibility, and it would most certainly go to the Supreme Court. With this court dominated by Trump appointees, anything goes. So where does that leave us? The bold-faced names being touted for presidential rounds checked into Sharpton's event to showcase their credentials. It was a bevy of governors, including Andy Beshear of Kentucky, Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, J.B. Pritzker of Illinois, and Wes Moore of Maryland, former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. Members of Congress represent Ro Hanna of California, Senators Mark Kelly and Ruben Gallego of Arizona, and Cory Booker of New Jersey. California Governor Gavin Newsom, whom many view as a fourth runner, could not attend due to a family obligation, Sharpton said. And Harris, one woman. The biggest danger for the Democratic Party that women and people of color won't be activated to go to the polls to put yet another white man in the White House.
And our Buffalo Next article, UAE exit dilutes OPEC, but alliance will endure. And this is from Reuters. OPEC and its allies will lose some of their power over the oil market when the United Arab Emirates leaves the group on May 1st. But the rest of the producer alliance is likely to stick together and continue to coordinate on all oil policy. OPEC Plus delegates, the analyst said. The UAE is the fourth largest producer in the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and said it would quit the group on Tuesday after nearly 60 years as a member. That will free Abu Dhabi from the oil production targets imposed by OPEC and its allies to balance supply and demand. The exit could complicate OPEC Plus's efforts to balance the market through adjustments to supply because the group would have control over less of global production, 4 of the 5 sources said. The UAE will become the largest oil producer to depart OPEC, a heavy blow to the organization and its de facto leader, Saudi Arabia. Abu Dhabi pumped around 3.4 million barrels per day, or about 3% of the world's crude supply, before the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran forced it and other Middle East Gulf producers to curb shipments and shut down some production. Once outside OPEC, the UAE will join the ranks of independent oil producers that pump at will, such as the United States and Brazil. For now, there is not much the UAE can do to increase production or exports due to the effective closure of shipping through the Straits of Hormuz. If and when shipping recovers to pre-war levels, the UAE would increase output to the country's capacity of 5 million barrels per day of crude oil and liquids. There has been tension between the UAE and Saudi Arabia over the Emirates' production quota, which stands at 3.5 million barrels per day. The UAE has asked a bigger quota to reflect the fact that it had expanded capacity as part of a $150 billion investment program. For years, Abu Dhabi has been looking to monetize its investment in expanding capacity, said Halima Croft from RBC Capital Markets. The U.S.-Israeli war on Iran would, however, slow those plans down after drones and rockets damaged the UAE's production facilities, she said. The war has resulted in the biggest ever global energy supply disruption in terms of outright daily oil production, according to the International Energy Agency. The conflict has also exposed discord among Gulf nations, including between the UAE and Saudi Arabia. The UAE is the fourth producer to quit OPEC Plus in recent years, and by far the biggest. Angola quit the bloc in 2024, citing disagreements over production levels. Ecuador quit OPEC in 2020 and Qatar in 2019. Iraq, the third largest producer in OPEC Plus after Saudi Arabia and Russia, has no plans to leave OPEC Plus as it wants stable and acceptable oil prices, two Iraqi oil officials said. OPEC Plus will not collapse as Saudi Arabia will still want to manage the market with the help of the group, said Gary Ross, a veteran OPEC watcher and CEO of Black Gold Investors. At the end of the day, Saudi Arabia was essentially OPEC, the only country with spare capacity, said Ross. Saudi Arabia can produce 12.5 million barrels per day, but has in recent years kept production under 10 million. OPEC Plus membership gives countries more diplomatic and international weight, one of the reasons cited by analysts behind Iran's decision to stay in OPEC, even at the peak of its fight with Gulf countries.
Damon plans an expansion of PA program by fall of 2027. A multi-million-dollar renovation on the Amherst campus should help alleviate the problem by enabling the program to grow. Damon will overhaul Damon Hall into the home of its physician assistant program, which is currently spread among different locations on campus. The building was formerly the home of Musical Fair Theater, which moved to downtown Buffalo last year after its lease expired. The physician assistant program is one of our key departments, said Gary Olson, Damon president. It's well known in the medical community throughout the region that our PAs are top-notch. Bringing together the program in one building on campus makes sense, and Damon Hall will be renovated to allow the program to expand over time with accreditors' approval. Damon's physician assistant program has about 325 students enrolled across its 5 years, including a cohort of about 65 new students each year. But demand routinely exceeds the supply of available seats. Some applicants with high grade point averages get turned away each year. These are top-notch people. They just can't get in. It's so competitive. When we actually get in this building, we'll have more room to let some of those students in. Olson said the school's provost, Michael Brogan, has said that he would like to add a dozen students to each new cohort once the expansion is complete. Oh, that's great. Good for them.
That is wonderful. As part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Abels, Joseph A. Jr., Esquire. Burns, Mary Alice, Nee Smythe. Gake, Tyler R., Sr. Minkiewicz, Donna. Piazza, Dolores M., Nee Pascarella. Taylor, James Mark. Zielinski, Rose J., Nee Nowicki. Nationally, John Seymour, 88, a former mayor and U.S. Senate appointee. John Seymour was the rare politician who didn't mind harming his career if it meant doing right by his constituents. As the newly elected mayor of Anaheim in 1978, he angered the city's police department by suggesting the creation of a Citizens Oversight Commission after residents complained that officers regularly harassed and beat them. The lifelong Republican upset his party's conservative base in the 1980s as a state senator when he announced his support for abortion rights and opposition to offshore drilling. He died on April 18th at his home in Carlsbad. And also nationally, Jerry Conway, a prolific comic book writer who co-created characters such as the Punisher, the first Ms. Marvel, Jason Todd, and Power Girl during his tenures at both Marvel and DC. A former Marvel editor-in-chief, Conway penned stories for many of the company's major superheroes over the course of his career, but he is perhaps best known for his contributions related to Spider-Man. Marvel announced Conway's death on Monday. He was 73. If you need further information on any of these names, please call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555.
And now let's go to see what the stars have in light for us today. And remember, each star is given a rating as to what kind of day it's going to be. But if you were born today, on Thursday, April 30th, you are calm, independent, and practical. You are also a perceptive professional and have an excellent sense of humor. This year, you will reap the rewards of your past efforts. And the days, if you have 5 stars, it'll be a dynamic day, 4 a positive day, 3 an average day, 2 so-so, 1 will be difficult. Aries, it's a 3-star day. You might feel some tension building up before tomorrow's full moon. Very likely it will deal with financial matters, especially shared property, shared expenses, taxes, or debt. Tonight, check your finances. Taurus, only a 2-star day. Today, there's a buildup of energy before tomorrow's full moon, which is the only one all year to take place directly opposite of your sign. This means that relations are being tested. Tonight, be cooperative. Gemini, a 3-star day. Each month before the full moon, problems seem to intensify. After the full moon peaks, these same problems diminish and sometimes disappear. Tonight, get organized. Cancer, a 3-star day. You generally feel the difference in energy, sleep patterns, in dealing with others during the full moon each month. Tonight, socialize. Leo, another 2-star day. There's a full moon tomorrow, which means today you might feel some tension building up ahead of time. This particular full moon might create a tug-of-war between the demands of home and family versus. Tonight, relax. Sure, after that. Virgo, a 3-star day. Avoid controversial subjects today because they will be volatile due to the buildup of energy before tomorrow's full moon. Tonight, discussions. Libra, a 3-star day. Financial arguments about your possessions, property, as well as how to share expenses or divide an inheritance might arise today. Tonight, maintain your possessions. Scorpio, another 2-star day. Tomorrow, the full moon is in your sign. This means there's an opposition between the sun in Taurus and the moon in Scorpio, which creates tension. Tonight, you win. Sagittarius, a 3-star day. You're keen to work and accomplish as much as possible right now. Tonight, enjoy solitude. Capricorn, a 3-star day. Parents must be patient with their kids today because they can feel the energy building up today before tomorrow's full moon. Tonight, be friendly. Aquarius, a 2-star day. Relations with parents, bosses, and police and authority figures will be challenged today because a strong energy is building up before tomorrow's full moon. Tonight, you're admired. And Pisces, a 3-star day. This is a mildly accident-prone day for you, so pay attention to everything you say and do. Tonight, explore and learn. Boy, that full moon tomorrow is going to cause great
Yes.
havoc.
And I think everybody should do what Sagittarius is supposed to do tonight. Enjoy solitude. Just stay away from everybody. And today in history, there's a lot of wonderful historical things that happened today. In 1492, Christopher Columbus was given a commission of exploration by Spain. In 1789, George Washington took the oath of office at Federal Hall in New York City to become the first president of the United States and delivered his first inaugural address. In 1803, the United States and France concluded negotiations for the Louisiana Purchase, with the United States agreeing to pay France $15 million for 828,000 square miles of land west of the Mississippi River. Gee, $15 million will buy a house now. In 1812, the territory of Orleans became the state of Louisiana, the 18th U.S. state. In 1897, the electron was discovered by English physicist J.J. Thomson. His work helped scientists formulate the atomic structure. In 1900, Hawaii became a U.S. territory after President William McKinley signed the Hawaiian Organic Act, which also established its government and constitution. In 1926, Bessie Coleman, the first Black and Native American woman to hold a pilot license, died at age 34 when her plane malfunctioned and plummeted 3,000 feet. And in 1945, German dictator Adolf Hitler and his wife Eva Braun killed themselves in a bunker in Berlin to avoid capture as Soviet forces stormed the city. So I wonder if they were all acting with a full moon happening the next day, because there was a lot of stuff going on.
Could be.
And we'll have some shorts here, if you'll give me a moment. Federal Reserve keeps interest rates constant. The Federal Reserve held interest rates steady Wednesday, but in its most divided decision since 1992, noted rising concerns about inflation and a policy statement that drew 3 dissents from officials who no longer feel the U.S. central bank should communicate a bias toward lowering borrowing costs. A 4th dissent at the meeting came in favor of a 1/4 percentage point rate cut. The 8-4 vote was the most divisive since October 6, 1992, and shows the breadth of opinion presumed incoming federal chair Kevin Warsh will face in pursuing rate cuts that President Donald Trump says he expects from his chosen successor, to Jerome Powell, whose term as central bank chief ends May 15th. Though the latest policy statement retained language about how the Fed would access the extent and timing of additional adjustments to rates, a phrase that pointed to future cuts as the next likely move, 3 policymakers objective. Meanwhile, Powell said Wednesday he'll stay on as a central bank governor for an indeterminate amount of time when his leadership term ends next month. You're listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News for Thursday, April 30th on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. We'll return for more readings after this short break. Your readers today are
Pat Lamont
and Ruth Nowotniak.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
will continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers are
Ruth Nowotniak.
and Pat Lamont. And let's see what's happening in the city and region. County consider ban on businesses' use of biometrics. When a New York City law forced Wegmans to disclose that it used facial recognition software to help identify shoplifters, Erie County leaders took note. On Thursday, they are likely to take action. A law that would bar commercial establishments from collecting biometric data is up for a vote on Thursday and appears likely to pass in a split vote, with the Democratic legislators voting in favor and Republican legislators voting against. Legislator Lawrence Dupre of Buffalo, who along with legislator Lindsay Lorigo, proposed laws that would require all commercial establishments to disclose to customers whether they were collecting their biometric data, said his constituents made it clear to him that a law requiring disclosure didn't go far enough to protect customers from having their data used without their informed consent. His revised proposed law came after County Executive Mark Poloncarz called for a full ban on businesses collecting such data. Biometric data includes information like facial recognition, voice recognition, and fingerprint, eye scans, and gestures. The law initially proposed by Lorigo and Dupre required both disclosure to consumers and a ban on selling or sharing that data with third party unless required for legal or government purposes. Dupre called his proposed law a consumer privacy measure that has sweeping support from residents and should primarily only affect big box stores with the resources to use biometric tracking tools. Proponents of measures like this point to weak regulations, lack of consent, and transparency regarding the use of human and behavioral data markers, and the potential for hacking of stored biometric data, which is permanent and unchangeable. I don't think this is very controversial, he said, but very little involving biometric data collection is without controversy. Many people already use biometric features, from voice to fingerprints, to do things like unlock their phones or find photos of friends and family. Some question the right to restrict businesses from employing biometric data, from protecting their own assets, or for relatively innocent uses of biometric data from being criminalized. Lorigo, who proposed a local law requiring company disclosure, said she opposes a full ban on commercial establishments from using biometric data. My law was very different than this, she said. It just required notification of businesses that they were using this type of data. I think banning it altogether is unrealistic. This is the type of data we know they're using at Sabres games, Bills games. They're using it at TCA. I think more places are using it than we realize, and banning it altogether, I just don't think is realistic in 2026 as we move forward. The proposed county law banning biometric data collection, sponsored by Dupre, has multiple provisions. 1. It applies to companies and organizations, both for-profit and non-for-profit, that provide goods and services to the public. Number 2, it prohibits these commercial establishments from collecting, storing, procuring, using, selling, or otherwise monetizing biometric data in commercial settings. 3, any establishment that already collects and stores biometric data must disclose it to the county's Division of Consumer Protection and detail how the company will permanently delete or destroy all such biometric information, then follow up with an affidavit within 30 days attesting that all biometric data was removed. for, I just lost my spot, I'm sorry. Violation notices would be sent to first-time offenders of the law. Establishments that do not take corrective action within 30 days may be subject to civil penalties of $1,000 a day if they continue to collect biometric data. Establishments that fail to destroy biometric data they already have may be subjected to fines of up to $5,000 a day. The law includes multiple exceptions meant to exclude many common instances of biometric use that are already broadly accepted. That includes the use of biometric data by governments and for compliance with federal, state, or local laws. Banks and other financial institutions are not subject to the law. The law would not apply to anyone using biometric data to access phones and other electronic devices for their personal use or for employer-issued communication. It also wouldn't apply to automatic face detection services used by social media application. Nothing in the law would prevent an establishment from continuing to use more traditional photo and video recording, such as for customer surveillance and shoplifting deterrence, as long as those images or videos are not sold to third parties or further analyzed by software or other applications for biometric data collection. You can still distribute to local law enforcement a video of someone shoplifting or photograph something like that, said the county's policy director. This is the additional step to run that through technology to generate biometric information and an abuse of that information. A legislator noted that a number of other states already have laws restricting biometric data collection, and they suspect major local retailers are already using biometric data, like facial recognition, when they take video of self-checkout lanes. You go to self-checkout because you have 3 items they're taking data from you, she said. They're screening their face without informed consent. Wegmans has declined to say whether biometric data is used in its Western New York area store, citing security reasons. If this law passes, disclosure to the county's Division of Consumer Protection would be required. Wegmans acknowledged that facial recognition data has been used as a tool in the New York City locations. The technology is used to help the company identify people who pose a risk to the company workers, customers, or operation, it said, and it is currently in use at only a small fraction of stores that have demonstrated an elevated risk, helping the company identify people who have been flagged previously for misconduct, including shoplifting. Tops, by comparison, stated it does not gather or use any biometric data.
Technical glitches force some districts to delay state testing. And this is by Ben Tujimoto, who's a news staff reporter. The state education department's rollout of computer-based testing for 3rd through 8th graders hit another snag Wednesday, as multiple Buffalo area districts experienced technical difficulties and were forced to postpone testing for the day. Buffalo Public Schools and Kenmore-Tonawanda Schools were among the districts forced to reschedule their math exams. The New York State Education Department is currently in the process of working with the testing provider to investigate and resolve this issue, Kenton Schools said in an email to the school community. The district cited login issues as a problem. Buffalo Schools on Facebook said its tests would be rescheduled for Thursday. The district was able to complete one of 3 tiers of its staggering testing Wednesday morning before issues arose with the digital platform. The State Education Department said in a statement just after noon Wednesday that technical difficulties affected only some districts across the state. On the morning of April 29th, the department was made aware of technical challenges during the administration of the federally required assessment exams, said a spokesperson for the State Education Department. The issue appears to be impacting a limited number of users of the grades 3 through 8 computer-based testing system across select schools and districts statewide. It is the second straight year in which districts have encountered technical issues with testing. Only 2 days last April, Buffalo schools and Orchard Park were among those whose testing was disrupted. State Ed at the time blamed its testing vendor, Northwest Evaluation Association, and called the situation unacceptable. Districts have until May 15th to administer English and math exams for the elementary and middle school grades, which are a key performance barometer for academic achievement. This spring is the first time that students in all grades from 3 to 8 are taking the exams on a computer. Media reports around the region Wednesday also noted a sprinkling of postponements, with tests being paused at Gates, Chili, and Rochester, and a handful of downstate districts reporting testing issues on social media. Not all districts follow an identical assessment schedule, however, which can limit the number affected. The state's phased digital rollout began in 2024 with 5th and 8th graders taking computerized tests, with the long-term goal of improved test delivery, test integrity, scoring validity, and turnaround time on testing results, according to the State Education Department website.
Ryan wants downtown to be a destination again. Buffalo Mayor Sean Ryan said Wednesday he wants to see more frequent and consistent programming and activities in downtown Buffalo in the evenings and weekends to draw people to the city's core and give city workers a reason to stick around after work. Ryan said a regular schedule of activities all year would help to not only activate city streets, but also bring in more people to support retailers, restaurants, and other businesses that are being starved for customers because fewer people are coming and staying downtown. That would reverse the post-pandemic trends of declining activity while generating the sales for small business. An estimated 20,000 fewer workers are coming into downtown every day, research has found, so the city's political and business leaders are searching for ways to bring them back. The city used to host major events throughout the year, including Thursday at the Square or Thursday at Main Concerts, as well as the Gus Macker basketball tournament and the Taste of Buffalo, but it can't just be a few major one-off events like that, Ryan said, because that won't change things. I'm less interested in holding 2 to 3 big events where thousands of people come in, and more interested in a series of events, 52 weeks, getting people down here, citing micro activities every day like a hypothetical Tango Tuesday program. We need to have 100 of these types of things in trying to focus on the Main Street corridor. One such effort is underway, the Buffalo Holiday Market, which has operated in a winter market at the Richardson Hotel for several years, is relocating to Front Park along the waterfront on the Lower West Side. Developer Rocco Termini recruited the owner Colleen Pandy to expand her operation to Buffalo with a 4-week Oktoberfest and then a winter market that will run from Friday, November 27th through Sunday, December 20th. Sounds like a good plan.
Yes, it does. Could budget plan for vape registry impact Western New York business? And this is from the Albany Bureau Chief. Governor Kathy Hochul's plan to create a registry of legal disposable vapor products coupled with a distribution tax may be one of the less controversial proposals in her nearly $263 billion state budget. But it could have a direct impact on one Western New York business already enmeshed in legal action with Attorney General Letitia James. And according to a veteran law enforcement official, it could be the start of a larger movement to keep tobacco away from children. It's a much-needed idea, said Edward Domenech, who served as the sheriff of New York City between 2011 and 2014 under Mayor Michael Bloomberg, and developed the city's first tobacco enforcement program. It's the first step. It's not the only step. Under Hochul's budget, now more than 4 weeks late, the state's Department of Taxation and Finance would create a registry of vapor products that could be legally sold in the state. In turn, the 55-cent per unit distribution tax would help boost the enforcement against illegal vapor products, such as flavored e-cigarettes that are mostly banned under state law in 2020. Businesses that manufacture vapor products would be obligated to apply annually to be listed on the tax department's registry. Only products listed on the registry could legally be sold in New York State, a memo in the revenue section of Hochul's budget stated. If products are not on the registry, they would be deemed contraband and a penalty imposed for the possession of such products. This registry would facilitate the tax department's enforcement efforts because it would enable inspectors to differentiate between legal and contraband products based on whether or not the product is on the registry. While Hochul has been hesitant to back taxes as she pushes an affordability agenda, her spending includes some exceptions, including the vape-related tax. The tax now imposed is based on vapor product dealers' retail sale at 20% of the price sold to customer. Under the budget, should it pass into law, it would add the new additional vapor product distributor tax of 55 cents per unit, first imported into the state or manufactured in the New York State.
You are listening to a reading of the Buffalo News on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 16 minutes after the hour, and we will go off to sports. Sabres can clinch its playoff series in Boston. The Buffalo Sabres couldn't close out a playoff series win on home ice. Now they pack their bags, travel to Massachusetts, and need to maximize their next opportunity to finish off the Boston Bruins. It is not an impossible task. Plenty of NHL teams have rallied to close their series after losing a previous game. They face off on Friday at 7:30 p.m. The experience of trying to eliminate a team from the playoff. David Pastrnak scored at 9:14 of sudden death overtime to lift the Bruins to a 2-1 win in Game 5 at KeyBank Center. The overtime loss spoiled Sabres' hopeful plans for post-game handshakes with the Bruins. It helped the Bruins stay alive for at least one more game. The loss Tuesday became one of the latest first times for the Sabres, an organization in their first playoff series since the spring of 2011. Expect urgency. Sometimes the road team can play a little bit different game and can frustrate the home team as well. Expect urgency and a sense of desperation yet again from the Sabres and Bruins in Game 6. If the Sabres want to advance to the second round, they have to stamp out the early nerves. The Sabres also can't play like any lead is safe. The Bruins erased the Sabre 1-0 lead in Game 5 en route to the overtime win. You can sense we got this lead, and at times we were just a little bit safe with our play, where we needed to just stay on our toes, stay aggressive, and have more puck pressure, Ruff said. We kind of deferred to playing a safer game in my eyes. They were also coming off a 6-1 win in Game 4 and faced a Bruins team that didn't hesitate to bite. At this point in the series, Boston's playoff life depends on its own ferocity. Nothing really changes for us, Bruins coach Marco Sturm said. Going in here, we had a mission, a one-game mission. Nothing will change. We will have a one-game mission again going home. We are really looking forward to it. Tomorrow, we're back to business, and we can't wait to play at home. Ruff put forth a mandate for his team as it prepares for Game 6. Get them to relax, play our game, and be ready to go, Ruff said. Pasternak's goal wasn't the eliminator, but it could turn into a motivator for the Sabres. Now it's incumbent on us to move forward, Lyon said. They're fighting for their lives, and that's what you have to expect when a team's season is on the line. We've got to move forward and start preparing right now. Well, good luck and God bless you.
Yes. Frank Reich honors Taylor in Call to Courage Awards. This is by Catherine Fitzgerald, who's our news staff reporter. Frank Reich knows a thing or two about a comeback. The former Buffalo Bills quarterback helped engineer one of the greatest comebacks ever in sports, a 41-38 overtime win that at the time in 1993 set the record for largest comeback in NFL history. Years later, Buffalo keeps Reich coming back for more. This week, Reich will return to Buffalo for the annual Call to Courage Awards breakfast. Reich, who was hired this offseason to be the New York Jets offensive coordinator, is a devout Christian who has hosted the event for 22 years. The faith-based event is sponsored by the Buffalo Pro Ministry of Athletes in Action. Reich will present the 2026 Call to Courage Award to Indianapolis Colts running back Jonathan Taylor on Saturday in downtown Buffalo. Last year's winner was Buffalo Bills tight end Dawson Knox. Taylor was selected by Reich, who coached the standout running back from 20 to 22 in Indianapolis. As the award winner, Taylor will give a testimony on how his faith shaped him. Joe Siffa, the event manager and an advisory member of Athletes in Action, felt Taylor was a perfect choice for 2026. Jonathan Taylor exemplifies everything that this award is about, not only an outstanding person on the field and how he carries himself on the field, Siffa said. He's one of the greatest running backs in the game today, but it's what he does off the field too in the community and about his strong faith. Bills head coach Joe Brady will be on hand for the event, as will Mary Wilson, the wife of late Bills owner Ralph Wilson. Last year, Brady presented the award to the high school winner, and Reich invited Brady back. This year's high school award winner is Orchard Park High School senior Jarek Bresky. While the high school winner is selected by the Athletes in Action Advisory Board, Siffa said the same criteria that Reich uses for the professional winner applies.
And from Major League Baseball, the New York Mets took advantage of their opportunities Tuesday night in a 0-8 win over the visiting Washington Nationals. The Mets turned 6 hits, 5 walks, and 2 home runs into 8 runs en route to only their 3rd victory in the past 18 games. The Mets left just 4 runners on base on Tuesday. Juan Soto hit a 2-run homer to cap a 7-run 4th inning that sealed the win for New York. A lot of confidence in those guys, said Mets starter Clay Holmes, who earned the win by tossing 6 innings of 3-hit ball on Tuesday. To see that type of inning and know that it's there, it's just fun to be a part of. During their 3-15 span, the Mets have been outscored 87-47 and shut out 4 times. They had been limited to 1 run in 4 other games. And the Yankees hang on. Cam Schlitter pitched a 6 shutout innings to best Jacob deGrom, and Aaron Judge homered for the 3rd straight game as the visiting New York Yankees hung on for a 3-2 victory over the Rangers in Arlington, Texas. The Yankees won for the 10th time in 11 games, and Schlitter, 4-1, turned in their 11th scoreless outing by a starting pitcher through their first 30 games. Schlitter allowed 3 hits, struck out 8, and walked 2. And Trey Yesavage pitched 5.5 sharp innings in his season debut, and the Toronto Blue Jays shut out the visiting Boston Red Sox 3-0. Yesavage, 1-0, allowed 4 hits and no walks while striking 3. He started the season on an injured list due to a right shoulder impingement. Vladimir Guerrero had 2 hits and an RBI, while Kazuma Okamoto had a 2-run single to help the Blue Jays end Boston's 3-game winning streak.
Fans vote Gronk into Pats Hall of Fame. New England fans voted tight end Rob Gronkowski into the Patriots Hall of Fame, the team announced Wednesday. Gronkowski, 36, will become the 38th inductee. The date of the induction ceremony will be announced after the 2026 NFL schedule is released. Gronk was a 3-time Super Bowl champion, 4-time All-Pro, and 5-time Pro Bowl selection in 9 seasons with the Patriots from 2010 to 18. He added a fourth Super Bowl ring alongside ex-Patriots quarterback Tom Brady with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the 2020 season. Rob Gronkowski's performance on the field was extraordinary, but it was his infectious energy and consistently positive presence that truly set him apart, said Patriots chairman and CEO Robert Kraft. He always brightened everyone's day. He earned the respect of coaches and teammates through his work ethic, preparation, and unselfish approach, while redefining what it meant to play his position. Rob became a fan favorite almost immediately and remained the standard at tight end for nearly a decade. We look forward to celebrating his induction into the Patriots Hall of Fame and, in time, the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Gronkowski's name will appear on the ballot for the first time in the next voting cycle to determine the class of 2027 at the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. The Patriots drafted Gronkowski, who was from Williamsville, in the second round in 2010. He recorded a career-high 1,327 receiving yards and led the NFL with 17 touchdown receptions in his second season in 2011. In 115 games with New England, he caught 521 passes for 7,800 yards and 79 touchdowns. He added 81 catches for 1,163 yards and 12 scores in 16 postseason contests with the Patriots.
Well, congratulations. I
Yep.
hope he gets in.
Yeah, me too.
And 3 Western New York players are all state first team. On Wednesday, the New York State Sports Writers Association announced its all-state teams for Class AAA, Class AA, and Class A. In Class AA, Lockport senior Charlie Croft, a Damon signee, was named to the first team. He averaged 29.6 points, 11.6 rebounds, and a 2.6 steals per game. Croft was an all-Western New York first-team selection and ended his career as the Lions' all-time leading scorer with 1,678 points. In Class A, all Grand Island junior Dane Brown and Iroquois senior Justice Kleitz earned first-team honors. Brown, the all-Western New York Player of the Year, averaged 23.7 points, 7.9 rebounds, and 1.8 steals, and 1.6 blocks per game, and led the Vikings to a state regionals. Kleitz was Western New York scoring champion after averaging 32.6 points, 6.0 assists, and 5.3 steals per game. He was named to the All-Western New York third team. Well, congratulations to all those young men and wishing them a happy, successful future. You are listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News. The time is currently 28 minutes after the hour. And let's see what kind of advice Dear Eric is putting forth today. Dear Eric, my daughter is 17 and has been dating a boy since she was 15. They plan to marry as soon as possible at 18. I'm worried, however, that he's not the guy for her. While he is polite to us and hardworking, he has belittled her and seems to try to change her into what he thinks she should be. I have heard this from others. His mom likes another young lady for her son, not my daughter. I have pointed out the red flags to my daughter, but she either doesn't understand or thinks these issues are no big deal and he's worth it. I'm worried that if they marry at 18, she'll be miserable and regret it. I'm sure he would be miserable too if she's not close enough to perfect for him. I say this because he seems to want to change her. Divorce is not an option as far as either child is concerned, so you can tell them if they get married too young, they just can divorce later. I'm not sure how to proceed or how to help her understand without pushing her away. Or do I just wait and see what happens? Although that approach is driving me to tears. Worried for daughter. Dear worried, your daughter's boyfriend behavior is concerning. For her safety, you should be as emphatic as you can be about the problems you're seeing. If he loves her and wants her to build a life with her, he shouldn't belittle her. It's not clear to me what the nature of the belittling is, but it's possible that this kind of a talk qualifies as emotional abuse, which can escalate to isolating her from her family, controlling her actions, and even physical abuse. Even if his comments aren't emotionally abusive, they suggest a domineering and unhealthy nature that could seriously damage her life. Speak to her as an adult. She's not yet, but she intends to make an adult decision, and you may get further by trying to meet her where she is. Respect will help her feel seen and heard. Acknowledge that you can't tell the future, but your life experience is cluing you into things that she may not be considering. Ask her to help you understand her thinking. Ask her what she gains by not waiting. There is a page on the National Domestic Violence Hotline website, thehotline.org, specifically dedicated to talking to teens about relationship abuse. You may want to consult it for guidance before talking to her. This conversation may, as you fear, create conflict, but what's paramount right now is her safety. Next letter. Dear Eric, I have to speak up about left unanswered's letter. The letter was about a 50-year-old who was frustrated that a 70-year-old friend didn't pick up the phone when called. You advise that the younger friend accept this habit and work around it. I live in the Midwest, and people here are so polite and shy of anything that might be a confrontation. That includes not wanting to help people, though through tactful honesty. If you saw somebody with toilet paper sticking out of their waistband, wouldn't you say something? Where is the line? Why then we hesitated giving people information about themselves that will actually change their life for the better, even with a bit of awkwardness and discomfort. I'm 77. I have memories where I realized in how many ways I was getting laughed at or disregarded. With a little feedback, I would have stopped being the kind of person they laughed at many, many years earlier. Then I finally wised up. Not finding a way to make a friend aware of something they need to know is, in my mind, socially criminal. There is always a way to say it. Even if embarrassment or rejection ends the friendship, it is worth doing for the sake of the world. A serious talking to in any form is what we owed a friend, even if the friendship ends. Please think about this. Signed, Friendly Advice. Dear Advice, a crucial thing to remember about tactful honesty, or let's say constructive criticism, is that it's important to first ask if the advice is wanted. If we see something standing in the way of a friend's happiness, we can ask if the friend is open to feedback, but it's important to respect the answer. Additionally, one person might have a problem with another person's behavior, but that doesn't necessarily make it a problem for the second person. The letter writer didn't like the friend's phone habits, so the tactful honesty would really be about an opinion rather than the advice. That is, I think you should pick up the phone more. Opinions are fine too, but again, it's important to get the go-ahead first. That's a really big thing to remember.
Yeah, but sometimes people, it's a tough.
Sometimes you miss the opportunity, and it's too late after the fact.
It's a tough call. Protein craze has farmers betting on peas and lentils. This is a Reuters article. Aaron Smith, a fifth-generation pea and lentil farmer in northern Idaho, says the dizzying rise of GLP-1 medications and a social media-fueled protein craze may be his farm's only path to profit this year. The farm economy has been pummeled by low crop prices caused by a grain oversupply, tit-for-tat tariffs triggered by President Trump's trade war, and skyrocketing prices of fertilizer and diesel. But pluses, which include peas, lentils, and chickpeas, have been a bright spot due to the rising demand for protein-infused foods beyond traditional sources like meat, poultry, and fish. Growers of the protein-rich crops see planting them as a way to weather an agricultural economy that has been in a years-long downward spiral. U.S. farmers are facing the fourth straight year of low to negative profit margins despite near-record government payouts, and farm bankruptcies increased by 46% from 2024 to 2025, court records show. We've been waiting for this moment to happen, Smith said, noting that he is swapping wheat acres for pluses this year, with prices of the former so low. This can be a game changer. These foods are at the center of an innovation boom that has taken off since the pandemic, led in part by social media influencers, some of whom are making dubious claims that raise concerns that this is another fad-driven diet due to expire. Still, planted acres of yellow peas have risen 55% over the past 15 years, according to U.S. Department of Agriculture data. At the same time, U.S. yellow pea exports dropped 81% between 2021 and 2025, according to U.S. Customs data, showing that the additional crops are being consumed in the U.S., experts said. A version of Cinnamon Toast Crunch cereal made by General Mills in partnership with Ghost, a sports nutrition brand, features 17 grams of protein per serving, compared with 2 grams in the original version. Protein isolates extracted from peas are being infused into fruit-flavored sodas, while lentil flour is increasingly being processed into pastas. McCade Mallon, a fourth-generation farmer in Montana's rolling prairie land, said peas and lentils may be his only 2 crops that generate a profit this year. He estimated he'll lose roughly $35 for every acre of wheat planted, but will make $8 for every acre of lentils. Finally, we found something that has a positive margin for us, Malin said, without providing additional details on his plantings. Many farmers already rotate grain plantings with pulses. To prevent disease and imbue the soil with nitrogen crucial for healthy crop growth. The seeds are relatively cheap, and the nitrogen means they require little additional fertilizer to grow, a quality that has made them more attractive as the U.S.-Iran war chokes off the flow of fertilizer. Pulses have the most hope for coming out of this year in better shape because input costs are so low, said Tim McGreevy, a farmer and CEO of USA Pulses, an Idaho-based trade organization. Nutrition experts said the protein boom is out of step with actual dietary needs. The average American already eats 1 gram of protein per kilogram of body weight, according to Johns Hopkins University, more than the 0.8 grams per kilogram recommended by many experts. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services in January controversially raised its recommended daily protein intake for adults from 0.8 grams to 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight. There is no epidemic of protein underconsumption. You don't need protein water, protein waffles, protein chocolate, said Stuart Phillips, nutrition and exercise researcher at McMaster University in Hamilton, Ontario. TikTok influencers are pushing protein maxing, encouraging followers to consume enormous amounts of protein with every meal, often with dubious claims that it will cure chronic illnesses, help with weight loss, and improve skin. Other influencers touting high-protein diets include moms sharing recipes for protein banana bread that they say will help rebuild muscle after giving birth. GLP-1 users, a fast-growing group that made up around 12% of the U.S. population in 2025, often seek protein-dense food to avoid muscle loss, a common side effect. Marketers of protein are exploiting this, said Marion Nestle, a professor of nutrition, food studies, and public health at New York University. It's nutritionally hilarious. Major agricultural companies have invested in pulses since about 2020. Grain giant Archer Daniels Midland touts its line of pea protein products that can be used in everything from cupcakes to protein bars. Cargill, in 2018, partnered with Minneapolis-based Purus, a niche company that turns peas into protein isolates used in snacks and drinks. Purus CEO Tyler Lorenzen said demand for pea protein, mostly secured from farmers in the U.S., soared during the pandemic as Americans became more health conscious. It's the same foods people already love to eat, but they're more rich in protein. Protein is more in the mainstream zeitgeist today than ever it was before. Nestle, however, said people shouldn't be fooled into thinking soda is now a health food. It's about selling products, the sodas, waters, everything, she said. Just eat food. If you want pea protein, eat peas. If you want lentil protein, eat lentils. If you want whey protein, eat cheeses or yogurts or whatever.
Jane Siren leaves legacy of dramatic transformation at Buffalo AKG. The facility that Jane Siren came to in 2013 bears little resemblance to the one he will leave behind later this year, including its name. And as many supporters say, those changes to what was then the Albright Knox Art Gallery and is now the Buffalo AKG Art Museum, not to mention staggering growth, financial stability, and international attention, were due in no small part to his leadership. He built both a world-class museum campus and a platform, one that connects the Buffalo AKG to its community in Western New York and to the global art world simultaneously, said Alice F. Jacobs, president of Buffalo's AKG Board of Directors. Under his leadership, the museum has celebrated its deep community roots and international presence, combining architecture, programs, and networks to grow and sustain the museum for generations. Siren, who led the museum through the most significant expansion in its 165 history and helped reshape its role in Western New York's cultural landscape, will step down as director October 31st after more than 13 years leading the organization. The museum's board of directors will spend the coming months developing a plan to find his successor. Siren announced his decision Wednesday morning in a message to museum members, describing his departure as an opportunity for transition for both the museum and his own work and personal life. It is time for a new leader to pave new paths for this extraordinary museum, and it is time for me to pursue the interests and passions that one necessarily puts on a shelf when one assumes the role of director. I am looking forward to resuming scholarship and research and to spending much more time with my family, he said. Siren was 42 when he was selected in January 2013 as the museum's Peggy Pierce Elfin Director. He left his position as director of the Helsinki Art Museum in Finland to take the helm that spring of what was then the Albright Knox Art Gallery. His departure will close a defining era for the museum, marked by a $230 million capital campaign, a new name, a dramatically expanded campus, a more visible public art presence across the region, and a deeper international profile. Under his leadership, the institution completed a $230 million capital campaign, described by AKG as the largest cultural fundraising project in Western New York history. Of that, about $195 million went toward the museum's expansion and renovations, while $35 million was directed toward a capital campaign for its operating endowment. The campaign culminated in June 2023, opening of the Buffalo AKG Art Museum, designed by OMA Shohei Shigematsu. The project expanded exhibition space, renovated the museum's historic facilities, and more closely integrated the campus with Delaware Park and the surrounding neighborhood. Jeffrey Gunlake, the Snyder native and billionaire investor, provided the project's largest gift, a $65 million donation. The expansion broke ground November 22nd, 2019. Jacob said Siren's accomplishments were unique, noting that his tenure was defined by strong partnerships, including his work with the board. On behalf of the board of directors, we will be forever grateful for all he has done for the museum and everyone it serves. He was the 11th director in the museum's 165 history. Before coming to Buffalo, he served as director of the Helsinki Art Museum, and before that, the Tampere Art Museum in southern Finland. He also worked in the Department of Art History at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem and received his doctorate from New York University's Institute of Fine Arts in 2001. Shortly after his arrival in Buffalo, Siren launched the museum's Public Art Initiative, a partnership among the museum, local governments, private funders, and businesses. The initiative has produced more than 60 public art projects across Western New York and helped extend the museum's presence beyond its Elmwood Avenue campus. The museum describes the initiative as a national model for sustainable public art programming and says it remains the only dedicated public art department at an American museum. The initiative also brought Buffalo one of its most popular pieces of public art, Shark Girl, a fiberglass and paint sculpture by Casey Reardon that has become a familiar photo stop at Canalside. Created in 2013 and installed through the Public Art Initiative partnership with Erie County and the City of Buffalo, the 5-foot-tall work of a seated girl with the head of a shark helps show how public art could become part of the city's everyday visual identity, free from the sometimes forbidden environment of a world-class art museum. The museum staff grew from 62 employees when Siren arrived in April 2013 to more than 200 following the completion of the construction project. The museum also reported attendance of 340,000 in the year after its grand opening, breaking a 51-year record. AKC's operating endowment grew from $31.3 million in 13 to $79.3 million in 2026. Senior's tenure also saw growth in the museum's collection. AKG's fine art holdings grew from 6,699 objects when he arrived to 8,489 today. Major acquisitions during his tenure included Anselm Kiefer's Der Morgenthau-Plan, Ursula von Reidenbach's Blackened World, Ragnar Cartensen's No Tomorrow, Jeffrey Gibson's People Like Us, and Simone Leigh's Village series. As part of the creation of the Buffalo AKG campus, Siren also led the museum in commissioning 3 site-specific works permanently integrated into the museum. Common Sky by Olafur Eliasson and Sebastian Bayman of Studio Other Spaces. Others Will Know by Miriam Bachstrom and Chorus of the Deep, something ephemeral and beautifully whole when seen from the edge of one's vision, too full taken head on by Firelies Bays. One of the most significant additions to the museum's collection came through the Marisol Bequest, which established Buffalo AKG as home of the most significant collection of the art Marisol's work in the world. The bequest has resulted in the acquisition of 585 artworks. Siren's tenure included a wide range of major exhibitions, including Marisol, a retrospective, Stanley Whitney, How High the Moon, Robert, Indiana, a sculpture retrospective, We the People, New Art from the Collection, Out of Sight, Art of the Senses, Picasso, the Artist and His Models, Monet and the Impressionist Revolution, 1860 to 1910, and Anselm Kiefer, Beyond Landscape. In 2022, Siren also co-organized an exhibition of Kiefer work at the Palazzo Ducale in Venice with Gabriella Belli, director of the Fondazione Musei Civici di Venezia. Siren's years in Buffalo were not without complications. Earlier this year, the Erie County Controller reported that Siren owed the museum $335,000 on a low-interest loan the museum gave him to purchase his $710,000 brick home near Delaware Park. The loan raised concerns among county officials who were told it was part of Siren's recruitment package. An AKG spokesperson said Wednesday the loan has been repaid. According to its most recently available public tax filings, Siren's total compensation was around $427,000. In March 2025, Buffalo AKG Workers United claimed the museum had been eliminating jobs in its visitor experience department in response to union activity and to discourage union activity. Museum officials denied that the reductions targeted the union. They said staffing changes were part of a broader operational adjustments made after the expanded Buffalo AKG opened in June 2023. The union made the accusation is unfair labor practice charges filed with the National Labor Relations Board, which has not yet ruled on the matter. Siren said he and his wife Sonia and their children have cherished their time in Buffalo, which he described as the city where he has lived the longest in his career. What will I do next? Colleagues and friends near and far might wonder, Siren said. It's simple. From the block of time that we call human life, I will carve out time for my family and for focused, impactful projects within the art world, working globally as a family ensemble with and for artists, museums, and cultural organizations, companies and governments, and private individuals. He also said he hopes to write and memorialize some legs of his journey from Finland to Buffalo and beyond. Love, learn, and live. That's my motto. Well, he certainly was a gift to us.
Yes, he was. How American attitudes toward British have evolved. This is from USA Today. A red carpet unfurled on the tarmac. Musicians with brass instruments performed God Save the King. Along Pennsylvania Avenue, British flags flapped in the wind. King Charles and Queen Camilla traveled to the United States for a 4-day journey commemorating 250 years of American independence from the British monarchy. The visit came at one of the most fraught times in recent history between the two nations, amid conflict between President Trump and Prime Minister Keir Starmer over the war in Iran and the future of NATO. Through periods of international political tensions, the British royals have served as a symbol of the cultural connection between the two nations. This visit, however, has prompted fresh questions about whether they still play that unifying role. As Trump's relationship with the UK has grown complicated, so too have Americans' attitudes toward the British royals. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle split from the family, and the arrest of the king's brother, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, over his ties to Jeffrey Epstein have polarized the public. The king's visit with a deeply divisive American president, who himself has been compared to a monarch, threatens to further divide Americans concerning the British royals. Sarah Hamill, a former journalist who covered the royal family, said Americans' perceptions of the monarchy are in the middle of another shift, and Charles's visit could shape where they land. The Trump thing, I think, is just bringing it all into focus, she said. But the president's feud with the British government marks the most significant rift between the two countries in decades. but it's far from the first time an American president has railed against a ruler of the British Isles. On July 9, 1776, days after listening to a reading of the Declaration of Independence in Lower Manhattan, George Washington's troops toppled a lead statue of King George III. They melted it down so they could cast 42,000 bullets for use against the King's army. The small act of rebellion represented a symbolic tipping point in the battle for independence. For years leading up to the Revolutionary War, colonists raged against what they viewed as unfair policies implemented by the British Parliament, but many didn't extend their anger toward the king. That view began to rupture as the first shots of the Revolutionary War rang out in Lexington and Concord. Once America became an independent nation, its hatred for the crown turned into intrigue. Thousands gathered on shipping docks and downtown streets across Chicago, Detroit, and Washington in 1860 for a chance to catch the glimpse of Albert Edward, the Prince of Wales. He was the first British royal to visit the United States since its founding. Excitement about the prince's visit transcended social class and political viewpoints. Then President James Buchanan even viewed the visit as a rare chance to bring the nation together as it teetered closer to civil war, according to the White House Historical Association. Years later, during a 4-day jaunt to the United States in 1939, King George VI and his wife, Queen Elizabeth, devoured hot dogs and strawberry shortcake at Hyde Park, home of then-President Franklin Roosevelt. The meal helped forge Americans' special relationship with Great Britain that has endured since World War II.
You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Thursday, April 30th. We read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, please call 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been
Ruth Nowotniak
and Pat Lamont. Thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of your day.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. Coming up next on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service with the New York Times Business section. Following that at 11, which is the Who and That's airing. At noon, is the USA Today. Stay with us. Bye.